9 minutes past 11, you are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media. You can't punish your child into better behavior. Forget about over the top punishments or ineffective rules because you'll end up in a power struggle. The right consequences actually motivate your child to good behavior. And here's what you can do to implement consequences that won't require a power struggle. And to tell us more is parenting expert Victorine MbongShu. Good morning, Sister Victorine, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks more for having me. It's been a long time here. I was
Yes.
looking forward to it.
Yes, it has been a while. And always when you and I have a chat on this platform, it's always about our, our our young children. It's always about consequences or discipline or something along those lines. But always great to have you join us once again. Now, the big C word, consequences. First of all, what are consequences, and how do you explain consequences to a child?
That's very beautiful. It's always good to start off with definitions. Consequences for many people is what you get after you have put in something. So it is result. It is the aftermath of a result. So when you do something, you get a result. But what happens after you get the result? Do you get
Mhm.
satisfied? Do you get disgruntled? And then what happens when you get that feeling that you get when you're satisfied or disgruntled? That is when we now talk about consequences. So consequences is the final level of whatever satisfaction you got from the action that you had performed or carried out.
hmm And then, how do you explain this to a child in simple terms? Because I mean, it is a big word, and I'm sure many people can't even pronounce consequences, let alone children.
Sorry, I forgot to answer that part. Life is sort of like a natural sequence of how things happen. And if
hmm
we have to start it from a little child, it is very difficult to explain to a child what consequence is without explaining what discipline is. So we
hmm
start by giving the children the reason for which we discipline them. Communication is very important, and I understand that one of the reasons for which you come to me is the communication part of the things that I do. You know, so communication is very important, and it is important that as parents, before we even talk about consequences, we should talk about the intent of discipline, the reason for which God gave that child or nature gave that child to you. The reason for which you are there as a parent is to direct that child, is to guide that child. You are just a journey. You are a seed carrier through whom that child will journey to find their own self. So start by giving those explanations. And once the child has understood that there is something called discipline and there is some people or aspects of objects known as disciplinarians, they will
hmm
then understand consequences as the things that you get as either reward or punishment for the action that you have committed because you are being disciplined.
hmm All right, you just mentioned a punishment there. Now, what is the difference between a consequence and a punishment?
A consequence is a flat word. It could consequence could be positive or negative if you look at it
hmm
in loose terms, but punishment is just negative in most cases. In every case, from the word itself. When you
hmm
tell somebody that you punished your child, they will raise an eyebrow. But when you say
hmm
that's the consequence of what the child had done, they are sort of mild because it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. So a consequence,
hmm
for instance, of studying could that you pass, and a consequence for not studying could be that you failed.
All right. Okay. And how can you make consequences more effective for kids?
I believe in communication and I also believe in mimicking what you teach children. Those two things are very
Mm,
important and they yield results. If you talk with your child, and I'm not saying that you should explain to the child at every step of the time or of your journey why you're punishing them or why they deserve to be punished or why you're rewarding them or why they deserve to be rewarded. But if you speak to your child frequently, and you make them understand, for instance, that they should not do this or that, and they go ahead and do it, you can then give them the negative punishment that they deserve for that action. And if you didn't tell them that they should do it, it then becomes really difficult for you as a parent to
Mm-hmm.
successfully then punish them for that. I'll dwell with the negative one because that is definitely in my gut feeling. That is what bothers you. The positive you wouldn't call me. So let's talk about the negative consequences. So you would then punish your child because you know that you had communicated to this child, you had told the child, you had shown the child that they shouldn't do this by you yourself not also doing them. So, for instance, I would talk about alcohol. You cannot be drinking in the presence of your child, sending your child to go bring alcohol, and then not tell the child that you're not supposed to drink alcohol until you're a certain age or you're at a certain level, and then you punish the child for drinking. That is the example of what I'm saying. But where you
Mm-hmm.
have told the child, you've educated the child, you've told the child the consequences, and then the child does it, you can now then look at the punishment or whatever you or consequences you would want them to face. But communication and mimicking is extremely important in everything, be it you an adult or you and as a child, because also the lack of these two disempowers you. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
communicating, you don't have the power to give your child directive. If you're not doing the good things, you don't have the power to give your child directive as well.
Mm-hmm. And that's true. Kids mirror your behavior. So if you're going to be saying one thing to them and doing a different thing, for them it's like, well, you're not any better. So who's going to punish you? Who's going to give you consequences
Mm,
as a parent? Because
mm,
you telling me to do something, yet you're not even doing it, etc.
mm.
Victorine, please stay with us. We're going to take a quick break and we will continue thereafter.
Perform your Kurbani with Sanzaf in Africa, 750 Rand, and locally 1,980 Rand per share. Visit us at sanzaf.org.za or at one of our branches in Fortsburg, Lenasia, and Lodium. Call 011 834 6046 for more information regarding your Kurbani. Sanzaf, changing lives through development and relief.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib black seed. You can find Tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Approximately 785 million people in this world do not have access to safe, clean water. In developing countries, around 80% of all illnesses are due to contaminated water and poor sanitation. Don't let dirty water end a life. Build a water well. In Bangladesh, Malawi, Nepal, Zimbabwe, or here at home in South Africa, donate to Penny Appeal's Thirst Relief Project to bring safe, clean water to communities around the world. www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Oakport. Call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
You want me to say can't play?
Sustain,
No.
sacrifice, share.
Can't play.
This Eid al-Adha, donate your udhiyah qurbani for Africa Muslims Agency. We ensure that your qurbani not only feeds the poor but creates sustainable incomes for local farmers, brings the practice of sacrifice to the villages, and shares the spirit of Eid. Sponsor in South Africa for 2,650 rands. Africa 1,650 rands. Palestine 7,250 rands per share. Or in Lebanon, Afghanistan, and other countries across the globe. Visit Africa Muslims Agency.co.za for pricing and to donate. Call Africa Muslims Agency now on 011 834 8685. Africa Muslims Agency, commemorating 35 years of empowering, educating, inspiring.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media, and we are talking about consequences. How can you implement and teach your children about consequences with parenting expert Victorine MbongShu. Victorine, thank you for staying on the line. Now, before the break, you spoke and you raised a very important point about children mimicking and mirroring the actions of parents. Now, as parents, we can't be saying one thing and doing another thing and not explaining to the kids why they should not be doing a certain thing. Like recently, we had the issue in the Eastern Cape where 21 people passed away, most of them which were minors. Now, a lot of questions raised there was where were the parents, etc. So it's that kind of situation is difficult to work around and to understand. So we're not gonna get into that, but rather let's talk about consequences once again. Now, how do you instill consequences for kids of different ages? I know you are a parent to kids from different age groups, and as they grow, you have to instill consequences according to their ages.
This is a very beautiful question. This morning, I was clearing some things in my cupboard, and I came across a note that my second daughter, she would have been 4 or 5 then, because telling from the handwriting, had written to me and said, "Mommy, why is it that when I do the things you say, you punish me, but Shannon can play anywhere? Shannon is the older brother." That's all what it says. That was a question that the child had posed to me. I don't know why I kept the notes because I really felt bad reflecting on it. But at the end of the day, what happens is it's extremely difficult. I've got 4 children. They are 2 years apart. My firstborn is 17. My lastborn is 10. So it is difficult in the sense that they have different needs at different times. We have to, as parents, learn and practice how to customize every single thing that we give our children to suit various independent children. So I'll give you an example. If my son, my firstborn, was to steal a cold drink in the house or take it without asking me, I would give him a harsher punishment than I would give to the younger ones, because I had consistently and more often than I had spoken to the others told him that that is wrong. And he is also of the ability or at the point in his life where he's got the ability to understand wrongness compared to his 10-year-old brother. So many things will then come into play, the exposure to that particular thing. On the other hand, if the 10-year-old brother, for instance, was to say, pull out toothpaste and just make it spill and waste it, his consequences is going to be also harsh, because that is something that from his age he should understand that is specifically for brushing your teeth. It's not a toy, you know. So I would then also be very harsh on him. So I recommend to parents that no child should be treated like the other. Every child should be treated independently, be it in the rewarding process as well. The way I would reward my 17-year-old is different from the way I would reward my 10-year-old or my 15-year-old. So we have to, in every of those, consider, number one, the kind of child also. One of the reasons, again, when I say kind of child, is that children appreciate differently. There is a child that will appreciate and react if you spank them. For instance, spanking is not allowed in South Africa, so it's a wrong example for me to give. But there is a child that will react and never do it again. Whereas there is a child that if you just say to them, come here by raising your voice, they would also react and never do it again. So understand your children, understand their characters, understand their reaction to consequences. Because I bet you, I love the opening that you gave, saying that sometimes consequences will not make a child. What makes the child is what has led to that consequence. Like I said, those foundations of the lessons that you had given prior to punishing them, that is what makes them, not the consequence itself. So you have to really, really be careful how you handle consequences, especially when you have multiple children.
And when you mentioned about the spanking or the beating, when you're giving that type of punishment as a consequence, I mean, like you mentioned, one child will react differently by not doing it again. The other one will react by just keeping quiet or just being afraid when the voice is raised. And then you get those who will accept the punishment and they will continue doing whatever it was that they did. Well,
Yeah.
why is that the
But
case?
why?
Yeah, well, why do they react worse to the punishment or rather to the consequence?
Mario, there's no way I can actually respond to this question without referring
Mhm.
to expertise in the sense of human behavioral studies, because it's very difficult to understand how humans behave and how humans react. People are
Mhm.
individuals, and they react differently. And I bet you they would also react, the same person will react differently to different situations. So for the two examples that I had given for cold drink and toothpaste with my children, there is one who would actually react. If the same child were to do the two, and I gave them exactly the same kind of punishment, you might find that they might stop taking the cold drink without asking me, but they will still keep wasting the toothpaste,
Mm.
because sometimes behaviors are spontaneous. Behaviors are not things that have successfully been studied, no matter how we try. The outcomes and the results usually end on speculation, because we would say, for instance, at that moment, other factors, including existing trauma, had contributed to how the child reacted to the spanking or the shouting, you know, and also the absence of trauma or just the absence of a parent. Remember that you've got a daughter. I remember, I think the daughter should be 4 now, if not 5.
Yes.
But you remember that sometimes when you give your daughter the exact same discipline in the presence of her father, she behaves or reacts differently from when you give it in the absence of the father. I
Mm.
don't know if you've noticed this. If you've not, then start taking note. They react differently. Even when you're with your grandmother, they would react differently. So many things come to play into how all of this happens. But what parents have to understand is just the fact that people are different. People behave differently. Try other ways of disciplining the same person. You cannot also hold
Mhm.
on to one form of discipline. You try different ways, you experiment, and you see the ones that work, especially for I don't know how to call them, offenders, people who keep
Mhm.
offending you, who keep committing those acts, the children who keep repeating that, who seem not to learn anything. You have to then try and experiment on different measures of dealing with such a child until you get the right one that works. Don't also give up. And don't, they say if something doesn't work, try tactics. Don't keep repeating what you're failing on. So try another form of discipline until you get the right one that will react to. You will definitely get it if you are patient, communicative, and also mimicking the right steps.
All right. You earlier on you mentioned communication. In fact, you've been mentioning it quite a bit. That it's very important. Now, when it comes to communication, obviously words are very important as well. The words that we use. So, what words should we avoid or use less of?
Mariam, I come from West Africa where we are actually very raw. For
Yeah.
instance, so I'm serious. We don't sugarcoat. I'm learning the sugarcoating habit here. And
Mhm.
for instance, what I was telling you about my child taking something without asking, it doesn't matter whether I bought it for them or not. If they do that, I outrightly tell them you've stolen, you know.
Mhm.
But the thing is, for me, I believe that if you, the person who committed the act, if you pronounce the wrong word, or if you even hear somebody pronounce them, you react differently. So if I say to my child, stop taking, take is a good, it's not a negative word. The child would not understand properly. But if I say, if you take, that is stealing, stealing is a very negative word. The child might understand quicker. So it goes back now to a new introduction in our discussion called culture and religion, which you have to also let those two guide how you talk to your children. In some cultures, you are not allowed to use these words. Meanwhile, in some other cultures, you could use the words and go free. And also, it depends on prior exposure of your children to the reality. You know, I do talks where parents are coming to realize or confessing and telling me that, you know what, my child never really knew that I meant this when I was using a disguised word. And I said to them, use the words as they are, because you are teaching these children. If you disguise the words or you get subtle, just be prepared that the child is also not going to take it as hard as you're putting it. They're going to take it soft-heartedly because you are using soft words to describe dangerous things that they are doing.
Mm.
So you cannot tell a child that a gun can make you die. You tell a child that a gun kills. Full stop.
Mm.
You tell me a
Mhm.
gun can make you die. It seems like if nobody touches a gun, it can make your child die. Or it seems like unless the gun is triggered or somebody puts it, like it doesn't send the real message. You
Yeah.
cannot tell your child that if you steal as an 18-year-old, you might go to jail. You tell your child that there is jail for 18-year-olds. Keep away from stealing because you can be sent to jail. Just like for me, I prefer things like that because, and also, I think what is wrong with words often is the usage. It's how they are used. So
Mm.
if you say it in kindness and in a soft voice, a child would understand much better than if you say it in threats. If you say it in harsh words, in anger, if you make them feel belittled, So being conversational and giving them the opportunity to define these things to you as they understand it. So ask the child, what do you think would be the consequence if at this age you do this? And the child tells you about it. And then you use that now to empower them further by bringing in your own perspective. Not necessarily
Yeah.
having the hand down type of approach in educating your children. Most of us parents, we are going wrong because we feel like the children just have to listen to us. They don't have nothing to offer. But it is not true. They have a lot to offer us. And we have a lot to take from them, modify it and give it back to them. It gives them more power when we do that.
Mhm. All right, so Victorine, we're going to leave it there for today. Time is not on our side, but thank you so much for your time once again, for joining me and for teaching us about consequences.
I appreciate the time spent with you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
With my sister.
That was parenting expert Victorine MbongShu. She's also an author, and you can find her books. Um, uh, One of her books is "Stop Complaining and Bring Back Involved Parenting." Just in case you wanted to know more about how to be a parent, yeah. First of all, you should stop complaining. Right. So you can find Victorine's books at Profound Intelligence Management Services. They are based in Bramley, in Corlett Drive in Johannesburg. So it is 11:33. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mario Mokwanda. Please stay with us. We will be right back.